Right, hi guys, and welcome to the video.
Hello.
We are pleased to say we are joined by Hannah again from eBay, and we have another special guest with us, Maria, who. Now, how did you just say it to me? I've instantly forgotten. What's your role within eBay?
Hi, I'm working on the EU seller experience. So we look after any changes to features or products, how we call it, which are relevant to EU sellers. So anything that changes for you on a platform, we are managing basically the change here in Europe.
Fantastic, because as I think everyone should be aware by now, there's a few big changes coming up.
Yeah, one major one.
One major one that has got a lot of people talking, and that's eBay is switching fixed price listings over to good till cancelled. So that's going to be our only option. And we thought we would have a chat about that because there's a lot of concerns, a lot of questions that have come up. We've got a long list of questions that we're going to try and get around to a few of these. But we wanted to start with, where do you want to start with?
Yeah, so we've basically got a list of people's concerns and questions that have come up since the announcement, and we're going to talk about some of those today. But I think the one that we really want to start with is why.
Yeah, I think
it's a big question.
Before we went live,
why are eBay deciding to change everything and such a big change?
Yeah, because from our point of view, it was working. Things were working perfectly, and this feels like a huge change, and we're not quite sure the reason why. So,
okay, yeah. So that's a very good question. Let me maybe start by saying like how sellers use good till cancelled or GTC listings today. So first of all, the vast majority of sellers today in Europe, they already use good till cancelled listings for a variety of benefits. Because first of all, it's easier to manage because they don't have to remember to renew them every 7 days, every 30 days, or whatever. So it just keeps going until it's sold out or until they choose to end it. And when I say the vast majority, it's really like most sellers in the EU already use this format because it's so convenient. And the other thing is that it has a lot of benefits regarding your listings performance. So for your search ranking, what matters is how many visitors you get, how they interact with your listing. And of course, it's easier for you if you have a listing that's running for 30 days, for 60 days. It's easier because all of this is aggregated rather than you having a listing which ends after 3 days and then it's going to zero again and you start off again. It's very difficult, of course, to compete against competitors who may have a listing, has a lot of visitors, has sold a couple of times. So it's very difficult to get up there.
I think in the past, there's been a lot of conversation about with good till cancelled, if your item doesn't sell and it stays on eBay for a long time, that over time it would gradually drop down the ranking and will be kind of ignored by eBay because it's an item that's not selling. And I certainly felt like I found this. And I stopped, all of our inventory used to be on good till cancelled. And we switched over to doing 30-day and then to 10-day cycles because we would see a boost in sales when it was coming to the end and when we relisted it.
Yeah, I certainly noticed that myself, that when I do on 30 days and when the 30 days comes to an end, on that last day, I get a flurry of sales as things are, I don't know, perhaps becoming more visible because they're about to end. So they're in a certain position on eBay where people can see them.
So is that the case? Do you know that with good till cancelled, do you still get that spike as it's coming to the end of its 30 days before it automatically relists? Or not?
So there were a couple of different questions in this. So I'm trying to sort things in my head. So first of all, do you get better visibility? So of course we analyze listings, we analyze the marketplace. So there's a lot of statistics around how listings perform, and we can't say for the platform as such or for the site as such, we can't say that this is the case. And this is also, if you think about like the vast majority are using GTC, so if they're all underperforming, they wouldn't be using it, obviously. But I can understand that for specific categories of specific products, there might be buyers who are more looking for ending soon listings, who are yeah, it just depends. So you can't really say it, and it also depends on a million. So your search ranking, your buyer conversion, it depends on a million influential factors. On the other hand, we acknowledge that there are a lot of sellers who use short durations mainly because it gives them this newbie bonus once they list an item, and then it gives them this, we call it hotness signal. So when shortly before it ends, then you get this extra, okay, ending soon, want to secure this offer. On the other hand, I feel it's a bit unfair towards other sellers. So there's a lot of sellers who just don't have the time to end and renew or relist listings all the time. And what we have seen in the communities across countries actually is that a lot of sellers saying, okay, thank God my competitor is doing this, but now it's actually level playing ground for everyone. And I think that this is something we shouldn't forget. So because your competitors, they have exactly the same conditions. So if you feel that in some category or for some product it's harder to gain visibility for buyers, your competitors, of course, they are in the same boat as you are.
But I think the other thing to remember here is that you still get notifications going out to people who are watching your listings. So I, as a buyer, watch a lot of items that are on GTC, and I do still get those reminders coming out to me to, like, something is on my watch list and I haven't bought it, so I'll get a prompt every few weeks or so to buy that. So there are those sorts of things still going on,
and this is especially in our mobile app, and which is quite handy because then you're notified, okay, this one is ending soon, this one was relisted, because like about 2/3 of our GMV already comes from mobile. So this is, I think, a very important channel, and something which is then again very beneficial for sellers because you get similar notifications as well.
So if I'm understanding right, that there is a kind of a boost when an item is ending or when it's a new item, as you said. So might this encourage people to manually end their good till cancelled and relist them again? Because I'm instantly thinking that's an advantage I can get you see what I mean? If I manually end it and sell similar, I would gain an advantage then. So people are still going to be doing it, surely.
Yeah, and we have heard people have said that's probably something that they would do or think about doing.
Yeah. And the other side, and perhaps this is another question we'll move on to, is that it feels we use the fact that our listings end and they're in our unsold listings as a way of managing our stock. We look at what hasn't sold and we then think, do I need to tweak the prices? Do I need to change the pictures? Do I need to do something to it? If an item's ongoing, rolling and rolling, you can easily just leave it on the shelf and forget about it. We now have to put in place something ourselves to manage this and manage prices and things. So it feels a little bit like we're being given more work almost. I don't know if you can see it that way.
Yeah. And so yes, this is something we hear from some sellers. On the other hand, from a search ranking perspective, it's not recommendable to end your listings. So the best advice is really to never ever end any listings at all. And this is also what we hear from a lot of sellers. So the worst nightmare that they have is that someone could just accidentally end their listings and then it impacts their search history. So one thing is about external search engines, of course, because for them, it basically creates dead ends. So you list a listing, let's say you put it up for 3 days, and before search engines are actually able to index it, it's already ended. So when those search engines try to index it, they go to your listing, they say, okay, it's ended, so it's not relevant. So they're moving on to something else. But on the other hand, this also impacts the performance of the eBay site in general, because then those search engines say, okay, I found a lot of dead ends for eBay, so I'd maybe prioritize other marketplaces where this is not the case. So this is not this is not good.
And it's not just the search engines that are using that. We've got partnerships in place with other sites where you might see like items following you around on the internet that you've looked at. In a lot of cases, that's only possible for things that have actually got a fixed URL that's not going to change. So if you think about eBay's affiliate program, the eBay Partner Network, if somebody is driving affiliate traffic to eBay, they need to do it from a fixed URL that's not going to keep ending, and then they can't convert and they don't get their commission on the sale.
Okay.
So we've got people of all sizes who are on the affiliate program, and what they're looking for is fixed links. So if you've ever tried to create affiliate links to a site before, if that link then isn't viable when somebody gets there, you're not going to earn a revenue from that.
Okay.
So there's Partner Network. There's also a partnership with a website called Mashable, where you can shop the look on fashion, and it can take you to listings that are matching what's in the picture. And if they keep on ending, it breaks all of that traffic. So I think this is about thinking wider than just what's happening on eBay. It's thinking about the entire e-commerce ecosystem where eBay slots into it.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could maybe explain a little bit to us and to people watching how the SEO works and how Google then pick up eBay listings when you're searching in Google, and how this will help.
I think that one's a little beyond our scope in expertise, but in terms of principles, keywords. So search engines are looking at keywords. You might have seen on the eBay for Business YouTube channel, there's a video that we did in partnership with Google Shopping, where they talk about the importance of having the right item specifics in place. So you take down that one particular search engine, they're looking for all of that information. So if it's not there, they can't show it on their shopping pages, for example. They just won't accept the listing from eBay. So yeah, good keywords, making sure the great pictures,
no watermarks,
also a good price. People really overlook the importance of having a competitive price. And that can impact on best match rankings. It can affect all sorts of different things as well. And it can help with conversion too.
And I was thinking in terms of the email that we all received, where it explained that having a good till cancelled listing will benefit you in terms of how visible you are on Google.
It stops all these dead links from happening. So if your listing is leading a search engine's robots to something that just isn't purchasable, it means that they're getting a very high bounce rate from those pages, and so they just won't send any more traffic there.
I was just thinking, I share a lot to Pinterest, and because I do on 30-day listings, obviously once that 30 days gone, somebody will click on my Pinterest pin, and then it will be a dead link. So it will help in terms of that sort of thing as well.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I suppose to a layman like me, that the longer it's been existing, it's giving Google a chance to know where it is and send people there. In a nutshell, does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. And we already have a lot of great tools available to sellers to optimize their listings on the fly, so without ending them. So actually in Seller Hub, you have in the listings tab, in the performance tab, you have the ability to search for listings who have not sold recently. You can also search for listings who are ending soon. So there's, of course, you can check due to be renewed soon. So of course you have the ability to then say, okay, it hasn't sold maybe for 30 days. Maybe I should just check, do I have the right keywords? Because if we're talking about visibility, to be honest, and when sellers come up to me and say, look, Maria, I've done everything I can. My listing's not performing. What's broken with eBay? And when we then look at the listings, so actually most of the times is they're missing some essential data they have overlooked. So it's really key to look at what are my competitors doing? So which keywords do they use? Are my pictures really compelling enough? Item specific, they're just crucial, because on mobile especially, like buyers are filtering because they get just too many search results. And then if I don't have the right item specific, I'm just filtered out. So I think if you're really talking about visibility, there's just so much more that you can do to really boost your ranking. So you don't actually need those short durations just to trick the search
And
algo.
I think there's a few other things. So a bit of a tip, because I know some people know bits of Seller Hub really well, but they don't venture outside of the tabs that they use quite often. If you go onto the listings tab and you go to active listings and then go over to the right hand side, there's the facility to sort by time left. So you just click on time left and it will tell you either which have got the longest amount of time to go, which will give you an indication of what has just relisted, but also you can flip it the other way so that you can see, oh, actually that one's only got like 14 minutes to go. Maybe once a week, once a month, you have a look and see which ones are about to end. And now within that active listings tab, you can edit some of the fields already without having to leave the screen. Things like the price, because I know there's a lot of people that say if it hasn't sold after the first month and it's ended, I'll just tweak the price a little bit and I'll relist it.
Yep.
You can just do that on the fly.
And of course, this catch it up in the search algo. Usually, like if you improve the price, it usually should catch up quite quickly. Or if you change keywords. So I think there's a lot you can do just to test and see what happens.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, one thing that has been people have accused eBay of with this is that it's just to make more money. Because if you switch everything to good till cancelled, there'll be a lot of items that are just sat there being automatically relisted. And remember, we get charged every time it's relisted. So what would you say to the fact that people are thinking very cynically that this is just a money-making exercise?
I would say no.
Let me put it this way. If you are doing 10-day listings and you're relisting 3 times a month, that's costing you 3 insertion fees. GTC is going to cost you 1.
Yeah.
And if the listing is out of stock but still active, you get a credit back on your insertion fees. I think it's after 90 days, isn't it? If it hasn't sold.
If it hasn't sold for 90 days, it would just be ended. So it doesn't renew anymore. But listen, like this out of stock feature may be worth mentioning. You have to actively opt into it. So if you like, if you know that you're going to restock very soon, then it totally makes sense to activate it for your listings. But if you have maybe a lot of one-off items you're selling, then it doesn't make sense to activate it for your account.
Unless I do know that there is a certain cricketing DVD that does the rounds that a lot of people see quite often.
Oh, yeah.
So let's say you've got a listing like that and you just know there's going to be, maybe that one's not the best example to pick, but if you know there's always stock around and you can always replenish it, instead of having the same item being sold similar every time, use the original listing, because it keeps its sales history if you kept it active. So you'll start to get 2 sold, 3 sold, 4 sold, and it all starts to build up. And so where we talk about having a sales history on a listing, that can actually help with the search algorithms as well, because they can see actually people are buying from this listing. So it can be useful for things that maybe you've got I don't know, board games. Even if they're in a slightly different condition each time, you can keep that listing active and then tweak it each time it comes back into stock.
Oh, because I was going to say that won't work for used because every used item is different. So you're saying I can just adjust the listing and keep it active?
Yeah, there are parts to the listing that you can adjust.
Right. Okay. So I was thinking, I mean, we've used good till cancelled, still do for car parts, for example, that we have multiples of, and that works fantastically because you gain that sales history as you've just been talking about. But I've never really thought to apply it to individual used items.
Yeah, and I think that just make sure that if you have got ones with different conditions, that you don't put them all on the same listing at the same time, because then somebody doesn't know what condition they're actually buying.
Yeah, so you have to describe the one they're going to receive and then another one on.
And then when it sells, it goes out of stock, and then you replenish it with another one.
Okay.
So that is if it is the same item, just very slightly different. So yeah, I think that there's kind of been this assumption GTC is no good for one-off used items, but actually there are a lot of benefits to it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've certainly had that opinion, I'll be honest.
I know, and the majority of our shop is one-off items, isn't it?
Yeah, so, a lot of it is. Also, eBay's been quoted as saying that this change is to improve the buyer experience. So how does that work? What does that even mean?
So if you imagine you're searching for a specific product and you have a saved search, so you've been notified whenever someone lists a new product, and then you have a seller, let's say, who just lists this DVD every few days, but you've looked at it, you think, no, it's not what I want, I just keep searching. But if you every 3 days, whenever you just end, or it just ends and you list it, every time the buyers are notified of this, and it can be actually quite annoying. And also at the same time, it's just all these newbie flags, which we have for new listings, or this ending soon. Of course, it can be annoying for buyers if they feel like, okay, I've just seen this yesterday, or like the other week, and now it's again like this false urgency. I think it's not very helpful for the platform as such. So what we want to get to is like auction, where there's a real urgency, because it's really running for a limited time, and you should make sure to just have your bid before it's sold. I think it totally makes sense to have short durations there, but for fixed price listings, I think we should just give buyers like not try to push them too much, or this is wrong perception, because on the other hand it would just frustrate them. So really about decluttering the experience and making sure that they it's just fair, like level playing ground for everyone. I think that's very important to me personally. It's like having fair conditions for everyone.
Okay. I've been doing exactly what you don't like people to do a long time.
Good, we talked.
But it can, as a buyer, it can give the impression that that item's not very popular and you're kind of desperately trying to sell it, which I don't know, it might be a good thing, it might not.
On one hand, but it's been working. That's the thing. It feels like it worked, you know, but it's really hard to know, you know, why things sell really. But
yeah, especially, I mean, this is what I mentioned beforehand. I mean, there's so many influencing factors. It depends on, do you have the right keywords, do you have the right pictures, the right description, the right price, the right category. So there's what are your competitors doing? So if you have competitors who are like really serious about this, of course, it's harder to sell your item or to get visibility if they're all super optimized and you're the one lagging behind. But on the other hand,
exactly.
It's just so it's really hard to tell. And when we look at holistically at our data, we actually can't see that short durations perform better, because otherwise, I mean, we wouldn't be doing it actually, because I mean, we want the same as you want. So we want items to sell. Yeah. We only making money if you're making money. So I think anything we do is only if we're super convinced that it's gonna be a win-win situation.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think as sellers, and I mean, this is how we earn our living, as you know, so we cling on to anything we think is giving us an advantage, and, you know.
I know, and we get stuck in our ways a little bit.
And we do get stuck in our ways, yeah. And there's no way that we actually know what we're doing is helping, but if it feels like it, then we carry on. And this is actually helpful to find out the reality of what's going on with search engines and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So is this change across the board? Is it for private sellers and business sellers?
Yeah, all at the same time. There's some regional phasing. So it's already the case in Australia for all sellers. America will be next, so on .com. I don't think we've got the exact date on that, but for Europe, it's all on the 1st of April. Yeah. No joke.
Yeah. So rest of world, so outside Europe and outside Australia, it will be mid-March.
Okay.
So it's gonna happen now in this around this time, and 1st of April. But it's like C2C, B2C, so same rules for everyone.
So C2C is consumer to consumer, which is a private selling account. So what Maria's saying there about B2C is a business to consumer account. So it's business accounts and private accounts. But to be honest, it's been that way for quite a while. If you're a private account using the app anyway, Good Till Cancelled was the only option you could choose.
Okay.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yep.
And just quickly, we have a listing allowance with our shop. Does this affect that in any way? Good Till Cancelled, I assume it's treated as a listing every time it relists. Or listing allowance. Okay, so nothing changes there.
Yeah, and as I said, if you've been doing 10-day listings, you might actually find you're using fewer listings.
Oh, we will, no doubt. Yeah, it may mean dropping down the shop to.
Yeah.
No, it shouldn't. It put listing more stock. You've got more allowance now.
I'll have to look at the numbers. Yeah.
But just do bear in mind that if you do make a decision to end a listing and then relist it, that is going to count as another insertion fee and be taken off your allowance, assuming you haven't gone over your allowance.
Yeah. Okay. So it's starting at the beginning of April. It's the 15th of March now. So if somebody listed something today, put it on 30 days, would that 30-day last for a 30-day listing, and then it would be a good to cancelled renewal after that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so everything runs as scheduled by a seller. So if you list it now, we will run exactly for the time span it's supposed to be. Now, when you list via eBay, so what happens essentially in the selling flow is that you will only have good to cancel it as the only listing duration option for fixed price. And yes, and we're working with our third-party tool providers to make sure so they have all confirmed that they will be ready. So it will also be reflected in third-party tools.
Okay.
And regarding billing, I've seen a couple of people that are confused about the fact that it's 30 days, but some months are longer than that. So I assume it's nothing to do with the calendar month. It's every 30 days.
Exactly.
And
and the good thing is because we have different number of days in a month, this means that the renewal date is actually moving around a bit. So if you started now on the 31st of March, it will renew on the 30th of April, but then it's moving. If you put it in an Excel sheet and a calendar view, and then it's somehow moving this over the years. So people always think that it always going to renew on the 1st or on the 30th, but that's actually not the case. So it's moving around essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. So have you got a question that you were?
I thought you were looking.
No, I thought you had one that you were going to ask. Because I think we've covered quite a lot of this now, haven't we?
I'm working through here at the minute.
Brief pause while we try to. We haven't asked you already.
There's a good one there, and we kind of touched on this a little bit. Are listings flagged as newly listed when they renew?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
No,
because they're not new.
No, and so there's no newbie boosters as we were talking about before.
Yeah, and this makes sense because it's not a new listing, so it totally makes sense. But again, so of course, what we always recommend, really, we have a lot of guidance in Seller Hub. We have a lot of videos on YouTube about listing optimization. There's so many things you can do to when you find out that your listing is not performing. There's so many things you can do to optimize, and it's actually those low-hanging fruits, as we love to say in this company. So there's so many small enhancements you can do to your listings to significantly improve, and keywords and item specifics are just some of them.
And the other one, which has just been rolling out recently, is the send offer to buyer.
Oh yeah, I've been playing with that.
Yeah, I've discovered it.
It was really good fun, actually. Just pressing the blue button and sending an offer.
I could see how that could get quite addictive.
Yeah.
Did it work? Did you sell it?
I made 2 sales. I sent out quite a few, but I made 2 sales straight away.
Yeah, and I made 1 sale straight away, but they didn't pay. I don't know, because, yeah, I know it's a different subject, but I think on that they don't have to pay immediately because it's an offer, or I'm not
sure. It's something that we're aware of when we're looking into.
Frustrating, that one, but maybe we can sort that in the future.
Yeah.
But I think that feature can be quite interesting for those listings that you were concerned about that might have been sat there for a while, and you're thinking, do I just keep reducing it £1 a time? How long do I leave it sat there for? That can just get it moving straight away.
Yeah.
Okay. There's one here that says, do reminders still get sent to watchers on good to cancelled listings?
So this is what we mentioned beforehand. So it depends a lot on the settings of the buyer. So what type of notification they would like to receive, but especially if buyers are using the app, you would have those notifications. Okay, this good to cancel listing is ending soon. And then you get a notification when it's renewed. So yes, there are still notifications, but it might not be as prominent. So you won't have this newbie flag, so to say, on the search results page. But I think the other notifications, they're much more valuable to sellers, actually, because they pop up on your mobile. So you have it all the time with you.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. And if somebody asks a question, I mean, this is one of those sort of contentious points, isn't it? If somebody asks a question about an item on which is good till cancelled, then you end it for some reason, would you be accused of selling the item off of eBay?
No, of course not.
Unless you are.
Unless you are. So those changes, they don't impact the policies we already have in place. And of course, we have some models running in the background to detect fraudulent behavior. But there's no impact to that. And usually, I mean, you usually have the listing live until they're sold out. So usually there shouldn't be that many occasions when you have to end the listing earlier than planned, because I mean, you should already still have like one quantity, unless you have a shop maybe. But
I think with this one, just if that's something that is on somebody's mind about this, just check the policy really, really thoroughly, so that you're not giving any indication that that sort of thing might be happening. And it's against policy anyway, so people shouldn't be doing it.
And it really shouldn't be any difference as to whether it's good till cancelled or 30 days or whatever. It's exactly the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly.
I know we touched on this before, but the out of stock feature, can you explain for those that maybe haven't seen that or used that, how does that work?
So it's a feature, so you have to actively opt in for your account and say, yes, I want to use this. And what happens, and this is actually quite handy when you're selling multiple quantities and you have regular new supplies, it makes sense to just keep up your sales history, and it will preserve it for 90 days. So if your item sells out, the quantity goes to 0. We will hide it in search, but it will still be active. It will be subject to the typical insertion fee. So if it's renewed, it will apply every time. But on the other hand, if you have a good sales history, sometimes a sales history of a couple of years for standard products, it's actually quite beneficial to say, okay, I'd rather pay like once the insertion fee extra, although it's not visible. But then once I have restocked, you would just benefit from all those boosters. And this is also one of the factors which matters the most for our search ranking. I mean, we want to sell, we want you to sell. So this is why we rank listings up which have a high performance, who get a lot of visitors, who get a lot of sales. So if this is one of your most valuable listings, I absolutely recommend you to use this feature.
Yeah, I wish that this was in place a long time ago. We used to have a listing which was a board game part that I had sold thousands of, and I wasn't monitoring the stock, and it ran out, and that listing at that point, this was a couple of years ago, so it was finished and gone. And I was top ranked for that for years.
Yeah.
And then I had to start again, and by this point, loads of people have cottoned on that you could sell a lot of this particular product, and I could never rank again. It was a nightmare. So the fact that I could have had that as an option where, I sold out, but I didn't realize, but the listing was still there with the sales history, which is exactly what you just said, would have been hugely beneficial. I don't even sell it anymore.
Yeah, and especially like if you have had it for a couple of years, so your ranking is so strong. So even if it's offline for, let's say, a day or so, like a day or two, then it can severely impact your search history depending on how competitive the category is. So I absolutely agree that this is something you should be really careful about. Like, okay, please secure those listings, because it's been hard work to get there to number one. So you really want to stay there.
What used to happen a lot was, and I did it myself, when I was running low but I hadn't got new supplies in, I would whack the price right up so it didn't sell out. Or, I'm sure you've seen this before, like
we've seen that.
So that should get rid of that as well, hopefully.
Exactly, because it's also kind of cluttering the buyer experience, so to say, when you have a lot of like board games for £1,000 just to make sure it doesn't sell. And then buyers go there and say, okay, is this some special one, or why is it
they might buy it and
just to find out and return it after.
It's like, this is not special. But I think there's, from what I've seen people discussing in the online communities, not everybody knows where to switch on out of stock. So you go to My eBay, go to account, and then site preferences, and then it's sell your item form and listings to switch that on. That might be the people who switched it on already and they've forgotten about it. So it can be good to check that it's already switched on.
I was just thinking that obviously for a lot of things in our shop, that's really useful. We'd want to switch that on. Then that means, I suppose, that then everything that is a one-off that ends will still stay as out of stock, will it?
Good question.
Yeah, I think that's where just sorting things in Seller Hub on your active listings to look for zero quantity. You can just go through all of those and say, actually, I'm not going to get any more of that one. I'll end it.
So is that an on or off for all of your listings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So you'd have to monitor that. Otherwise, you'd have a lot of individual items just sitting there, being charged on.
Yeah, and on the other hand, it can be quite difficult to manage. If you had to choose it for every single listing, it would be hard to forget to switch it on. Or maybe sometimes you feel that, okay, this ain't gonna sell anyway. And then later you find out it's actually performing quite well. So you forget to switch the feature on for this specific listing. So this is why we said it's better to have it as a one-off for your whole account. And then you're free to sort in Seller Hub. You can sort your listing, like maybe something like once a week, and make sure that everything which is out of stock is actually still relevant, or you just end it.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. It's just another thing that we've got to be really vigilant about, isn't it? That don't drop the ball on it.
And I think from what I've seen, that's what's unsettling people. It's like, oh, I might have to change how I do things. And yeah, I know it's uncomfortable when that happens.
Yeah.
I was just reading through. We seem to have covered most of the other concerns and questions on here now. So, yeah, unless there was any particular topics you needed to discuss about it.
There was. I just wanted to. There was one question that wasn't on there that I know that a few people have had a concern about, and that is that people are concerned that maybe eBay is starting to favour like bigger businesses who sell multiples of things and list multiples of things, rather than sellers like us, are sort of in the middle of the private sellers and the bigger businesses that, you know, sell the collectibles, sell the one-off products, and starting to feel a little bit uneasy about where we sit with that, and, you know, concerned that eBay are favouring the bigger businesses.
I think like small sellers, you are actually our DNA. I mean, you are what makes eBay special. So you have the variety of sellers, and we would never do anything to, so to say, to harm small sellers. I think it's just from my perspective, it's same rules for everyone. And also we look at the whole seller performance. Of course, like if you have a lot of one-off items, but you have 100% positive feedback, you don't have many defects, you are very responsive to buyer inquiries, so which would give you a high ranking anyway. And so we would also give your listings a lot of visibility, even if it's just one-off items. So I think it's really about looking at the whole picture, and we honor people who just consistently perform and who consistently deliver for the buyer, because again, we're in this boat together. We are only successful if you're successful, and we definitely want eBay to be this place for everyone. So we want a variety, we want the different types of sellers, different kind of products, all types of item conditions. So definitely you have a lot of chances to be successful if you just do the whole package, so to say.
And I think it's the kind of unusual inventory that sellers like yourselves bring to the site that brings customers, and then they'll buy other things while they're on eBay. So I think that there is this skew sometimes that people see big sellers taking part in deals and special events, but that is just because they have got hundreds of units available of it. We would love to be able to be in a position where smaller sellers did have hundreds of units available that they could sell, but we can't go out and advertise something and then there's only one or two of them available. So I think that's sometimes what's driving this perception that they're getting more attention from us, but it is that variety and the fact that you can buy the same item in a variety of conditions. If you're looking for a new phone, you could have the latest phone that's just come out, or you could have two models down if that's the budget you want, or a refurbed version. There's just such a variety to suit any customer, really.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is eBay's strength, that you can go there to find the weird stuff as well as the regular brand new items that, you know, Argos or Tesco's
Yeah.
or whoever's selling. You
Yeah.
can find the weird
There
weapons.
really are some weird things as well.
Yeah, we can get off a fair share of those.
Yes.
And this is actually what we're here for today. I mean, we want to help you to be successful. We want to help your community to be successful. If you wouldn't care, so we wouldn't be sitting here together and discussing this change for sellers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. I'm sure there'll be other concerns or questions that people watching this will have. So I just wanted to say, if you do have a question, please pop it below. We'll try and get to those and get some answers. But I think we've covered most of what we set out to cover. Unless there's anything else you guys wanted to add.
No.
I think that's it.
Fantastic. So as a
I just hope we covered
recap,
everything.
as a recap then, 1st of April, and it's not April Fool's, this is happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's when it rolls out, and it's across the board, all sellers.
Yeah.
And yeah, big change.
Big change, but we'll adapt.
Exactly.
Good
That's the
attitude.
spirit.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Maria and Hannah. Hope that was okay.
My pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and do drop us comments below. Let us know what you thought about the video. Any questions, please put them below, and we'll try and answer those.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.